Hello and welcome to the latest Royal Roundup from TalkTV. So, pop the kettle on. This is the Royal Tea. I'm Afua Hagan. Coming up on today's show, why the Princess of Wales broke with tradition as she responded to well-wishers. Will Meghan really be joining Harry on his UK visit next month? And find out who's the most popular royal. Joining me today to discuss all of that and much, much more are the Sun's royal editor, Matt Wilkinson, royal commentator and entertainment correspondent, Rebecca Twomey, and royal podcaster and TalkTV host, Cristo Foufas. Welcome, everyone. Now, Kensington Palace has posted thank you notes to members of the public who sent their best wishes to the Princess of Wales as she recovers from cancer. The short note on the postcard read, "Thank you for your kind well wishes to Her Royal Highness the Princess of Wales. Your thoughtful gesture is much appreciated." In a break with tradition, no photo accompanied the note, which was instead left blank on one side. Now, I guess we shouldn't be surprised that there was no photo, should we, Matt?
Well, what kind of controversy would it cause if they put up a photo?
Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting, the way they've done this, because it's completely different to what the King did. We got to see pictures of the King going through all of his cards and reading some of the messages out. But obviously, Princess of Wales is far more private, and they've sent these nice little letters out, and this is a different way of dealing with their illness than the King.
Yeah, and it's nice for them to do that, to acknowledge people's well wishes. I'm sure she got thousands of cards and gifts and things. Rebecca, have you ever, or has anyone on the planet actually ever written to the royal family and got a letter back?
No,
Sorry.
I absolutely wish I had it. It's just so elegant, the way everything Kate Middleton does. I feel like she's never put a foot wrong. They told us that she would, come back sort of after Easter, and look how beautifully she has, in a very, very nice way. I'm so pleased I didn't have a photo in those cards, because you just imagine the picking holes.
Yeah.
Let the poor girl recover from what must be the most traumatic experience. I would have loved to have had a letter from Kate Middleton, but I feel that I'd rather her concentrate on getting better to get back in action than her writing me a letter, even though I'd absolutely love one.
Yeah, I hear you. Cristo,
yes,
you've had a royal letter, tell me.
I wrote to the Queen Mother, actually, years and years ago, when my great-grandmother was born in 1900, the year she was born, and when my great-grandmother turned 90, I think, I wrote her, the Queen Mother, asking her to send a letter to my great-grandmother, and she did, and she wrote back to me saying, "Thank you for your letter, and I am going to write to your great-grandmother." So, but I think that that's the whole essence, actually, of these letters being sent. Wasn't it the late Queen who said that, you have to be seen to be believed?
Absolutely.
OK, this isn't being seen, but it is reminding people, look, Princess Catherine, she's still there. And going back to your point, Matt, I wonder as well whether this is perhaps slightly more low-key than the King's photos and pictures of him responding, because they don't want to usurp the King. The King, that's his way of saying, look, I'm around. If Catherine were to do that, Princess Catherine, then that would perhaps be on a par with the King. And maybe this is the way of just saying, look, I'm going to respond, but I'm going to do it in a slightly more low-key way, because the King is the star of the show.
But Matt, could this be Kensington Palace trying to be a bit more transparent, accountable, interact with people?
No, I think it's politeness, but it's also privacy. As I say, I think that these are the letters that they've sent out. It really shows that the Princess of Wales appreciates, as she did when she made when she gave the address when she was sitting on the bench. I mean, she spoke that, thank you very much for all the kind wishes and stuff. It shows that they appreciate it, but I think it just shows that she's dealing with it in a far more private way than the King. You're right, the King does want to be seen, needs to be seen to be believed, and that we are told that he wants to be seen. So when he's been driving from Buckingham Palace to Clarence House to hold engagements and stuff like that, they want us to see him. They want him to be pictured. Whereas Princess of Wales is dealing with this completely differently, and has sent these. Her team has sent out these letters to say, without a photo, because they're just dealing with it in a completely different way to the King, and you've got to respect that.
Yeah, definitely. The King and Queen celebrated their 19th wedding anniversary this week. Good for them, 19 years. Matt, how did they mark this occasion? Tell us.
Well, normally they go to Balmoral or Birk Hall. So every year for 19 years they'd go up to Scotland. They didn't. They stayed in London, and because I think it was maybe to do with his treatment. But the King went to work. So the King went to Buckingham Palace and got to see these new banknotes with his portrait on, which he described as very elegant. He would do, his face is on them, but he described them as very elegant. So, yeah, it was a working day for the King, which I was quite surprised because they normally go away and hide up in Birk Hall. So that they were together in London. And it's remarkable that it's 19 years. I mean, that's longer than he was married to Diana, remember? And this is a proper successful marriage. But I just typical Charles, just typical King. Could have had a day off, could have gone walking in the hills, had a nice lunch up at Birk Hall, but instead he went to work at Buckingham Palace and launched the new banknotes.
Rebecca, like Matt said, 19 years, that has gone by really, really quickly. But what a year they have had. This past 12 months has been full on, hasn't it, in many ways?
So intense with everything that's been going on since his coronation, all of the drama with, Meghan and Harry as well, all of the pain, the ruptures in the family, everything with Prince Andrew, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. But I think what the Queen said as well when they got married is that, she wishes them well. That their love obviously has stood the test of time. I remember all the commentary around their actual wedding. This is a romantic in me. This is a true love story. OK, if we sidestep all of the drama with Diana, actually, there were two people who seriously should have been together, and it's a shame they didn't get married in some ways at the very start, because obviously they're very good together. And Camilla does seem to very much centre Charles. And look how loyal and how much she's given the public while he's been having treatment. She's really stepped out. And let's remember how cruel and nasty the public and the press were to Camilla back in the day. And it's wonderful to see her taking this role and really owning it. And I think she's a phenomenal lady and support to our King.
Cristo, Rebecca picked up on it there, that we have seen Queen Camilla shouldering the royal family in the past 3 months, as we've had two of our principals dealing with this health crisis. Do you think that's changed the public perception of her?
Yes, but I think the thing that probably changed the public perception of her most was when the late Queen actually put out that statement, probably knowing she was in her final months, the final act, saying, I really want Camilla to be the Queen Consort to my son. Bearing in mind the late Queen was traditionally, ask her sister, not always in favour of those relationships that aren't seen as worthy in the eyes of being the head of the Church of England. That was the most ringing endorsement that Queen Camilla could have ever got, and it was a real endorsement of her having gotten her head down, being a royal wife to King Charles, the then Prince Charles. And I believe that the late Queen saw that Camilla makes King Charles a better king. So I think that has been the turnaround. But I have to say, it's a shame it wasn't their first anniversary, because what a great paper present that would have been. Here are some banknotes with your face on it. What a great gift. I would have loved that for my anniversary.
That's a good point, right?
But I don't know what it is for 19. What is the 19 present?
I don't know. I mean, their 20th will be a big one. Hopefully there'll be some nice celebrations and everyone will be well. King Charles could open Buckingham Palace to film crews. That's according to reports this week. The King is supposedly open to the idea he could raise millions by making it available to film crews and organisations for functions. The King spends most of his time at Clarence House, doesn't he, Matt? So this makes sense. And should we film the royalty there?
Yeah, I'm sure.
That'd be nice. Yes.
I think it's a bad idea. Not filming royalty there, but I think letting cameras into the Buckingham Palace.
How so?
I think you need to have some kind of magic and magistry behind the scenes. You know what I mean? The King wants to open up more of the palaces to the public. Balmoral, remember, is you can now get tours of the private rooms, and they're doing loads of work up at Balmoral actually around letting people in. They've extended the opening times to the staterooms over the summer, that more people can get in to make a little bit more money. And the King does want to open it more to the public. I think just it feels a bit trashy. Do you know what I mean? There's talk of getting cameras in there. Let's leave a little bit of magic. Go in there as a tourist, put the earphones on where you get to listen to the tour guide and stuff like that, see the marvellous paintings, see all the artwork, see the rooms where you've seen the christenings take place and all the famous events that have happened in the palace. But I don't really want TV crews traipsing around Buckingham Palace doing shows in there. I think it's a bad idea.
Rebecca, you were vehemently disagreeing.
I do, because I just think the crown, the success of that shows how much we want more. And I think the king is so good at modernising the royal family and keeping people interested. Now, my main concern is who's going to fund some of, maybe a lot of the palaces might need some work done. Who's going to fund that? And that might fall to the taxpayer, likely to be. But let's remember when the late Prince Philip invited a film crew in the 60s. Now, I remember that mainly from The Crown, which is, I'm sad to say, some of my royal knowledge does come from The Crown, and I obviously read up afterwards about it. But how that didn't turn out so successful. So hopefully that they've learned some lessons. I do want some of our sort of traditions and privacy to be respected, but I think in order for the monarchy to survive, we need just a little bit more. And it would be nice just to see the softer side or the day-to-day money and how hard they work, because someone like Princess Anne, she does work incredibly hard. And I think it would be, you know, an honour to her, respect to her, to show the royals actually doing the hard graft.
There was talk a while ago that, because Camilla is a huge Strictly fan,
yes,
so they wanted to film a special episode of Strictly Come Dancing, so they looked at it, and bizarrely, this sounds weird, but Buckingham Palace didn't have enough room. So you've got the ballroom, it's a vast room, but they couldn't get a dance floor, the crowd and all the BBC cameras into the
Not
ballroom.
about outside.
They could do it outside in the forecourt or something like that, couldn't they? But that's the kind of thing that they have looked at in the past, and maybe kind of stage something like that there.
That would have been amazing. Cristo,
I agree it's a really bad idea. I think the royals have a tightrope that they've always got to walk between trying to modernise, give the public enough of themselves, be seen enough, but also not give away too much of the mystique, not give away too much of what goes on behind the scenes. And, you know, film crews, maybe I could sort of get my head around, but the idea of sort of, you know, hiring out for, I don't know, the Andrex corporate party or some sort of middle management do with them like vomiting in the plant pots outside, and, you know, portaloos in the courtyard. I just think that's a really, really bad idea. So, yeah, maybe a little bit more, but not. No, I think that you've got to keep some of it behind closed doors.
I still think an episode of the royalty from Buckingham Palace would be amazing.
That would be the exception, of course.
That would be the exception.
The exception. Only though if you're on the throne in the stateroom. Otherwise,
wouldn't that be good? Oh, yeah. Get on that, producers. Right. The latest YouGov poll that monitors the popularity of the royal family has revealed Princess Catherine is currently the most popular royal, whilst Prince Andrew remains the least popular. No surprise there. Meghan and Harry are the second and third least popular, whilst Prince William is closely behind his wife as the second most popular. Cristo, any surprises in that list there at all?
Not at all, I have to say. I think that it's pretty obvious. Sometimes, you know, if I'm feeling a bit down, I just go and watch that Emily Maitlis interview because it is just so staggeringly terrible for Prince Andrew that you have to watch it. I have watched Scoop, and again, I think what the genius of Scoop is that it highlights the strategy, which was almost give him enough rope. You know, let's give him space to breathe, space to talk, space to think it's a success. So it's not a surprise that you know, Prince Andrew has never been convicted of anything. He's always denied any kind of impropriety. But it is not surprised that his complete lack of self-awareness around the whole issue is the thing that the public cannot get their heads around. No surprise that Meghan and Harry are unpopular because obviously they've made their careers recently out of just slacking off the royal family. No surprise that Prince William and Princess Catherine are further up the list because, you know, obviously with Princess Catherine's illness, Prince William bearing a lot of the strain of that. So, no, not massive surprise at all.
Rebecca, Scoop certainly will not have done Prince Andrew any favours, so to speak. But do you think it's reflected badly on the royal family as a whole?
No, I don't think so. I think what really reflects badly, in addition to all the stuff that's already out there, is Prince Andrew's behaviour ever since. He's never seemed to have much humility. I know we spoke about this the last time we were doing this together, in that he sort of comes out with pride in front of the family, leads it, and has never really thought about how, or he doesn't seem very aware of how he's perceived. And I don't even think this poll will change anything. He's never come out and said anything and shown any apology, humility. It's not necessarily admitting any wrongdoing, because I know he's denied everything, but just to say this is embarrassing and it's come up again. What I think was interesting, though, is while with the headlines we love to say, oh, Harry and Meghan are at the bottom of the poll, but what was very interesting I found in those stats is that the younger generation, who don't seem to be very engaged with the royal family, were actually voting for the underdog, shall we say, for Harry and Meghan, which I think does actually bode well for the future of the monarchy. Because even though they've decided to decline from it, there's obviously still an interest. And I think as long as young people are still interested, want to read the headlines, want to support even the underdog, shall we say, I think that bodes well for the future.
Just going back to Prince Andrew, by the way, let's not forget there's another one as well on the cards, which is a very royal scandal, which is the Amazon one, which is 3 parts, I think. And I think, again, he's not going to come off very well in that
He
one.
can't ever come off well, though, can he?
You're right. There is nothing
There's
about
no coming back.
You're quite right, though, when you make the point about the self-awareness. Watching it now in hindsight, it's a wonderful thing. You would just say, you know, what a misjudgment. I'm so sorry. I didn't do anything wrong, but what was I thinking? I'm really,
embarrassment you caused
sorry.
for your late mother.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. You know, the lines, the classic lines, you know, I was just too honourable. It was a convenient place to stay.
Yeah.
Do you know, when I watched Scoop, I had a Pizza Express. I actually got it delivered.
Did you get it wet, though? Did you sweat while watching it?
And did you get it from
I
working?
think anyone watching it would have sweated.
Matt, going back to the YouGov poll, so when it comes to the institution, so the poll says that 58% of Britons have a positive view of the monarchy, but that's just 32% of 18 to 24-year-olds. So what can the royals do to become more popular with the younger generation? Is it about modernisation?
I've got a theory on this, but I think it's not necessarily modernisation. It needs to remain archaic and interesting and old and historic. That's its charm. But I think as people get older, they like the royal family. So I'm not just knocking this YouGov poll, but I think the young people have got other kind of interests and stuff like that. But as you get older, you begin to appreciate a little bit more what they do. A couple of things on William and Catherine coming top, and I was thinking the other day I had, you know, on your iPhone, it pops up with what you were doing 2 years ago.
Yes.
So it popped up saying the Caribbean tour. So there's a Caribbean tour, obviously a disastrous tour, and Catherine and William are not without their kind of PR missteps, without their kind of scandals and crises, especially with this photograph, obviously, that's happened. And I was thinking, you talked about humility with Prince Andrew. That they, in both occasions after the tour, William and Catherine came up and said, yeah, we did wrong, we're going to change, we're going to do the Cambridge way, as it was called then, and we're not going to do this kind of thing, we're not going to be in the back of a Jeep again, driving around, this looks dreadful. And they own up to it, William owned up to it. And then after the photo debacle, Kate owned up to it. You know, you don't get that with other members of the royal family. You didn't get that with Andrew, and you don't really get that with Meghan and Harry, and I wonder if people have, you know, seen that and they come across as more genuine and apologise for their mistakes when other members of the royal family perhaps haven't.
Good point. Now, Prince Harry's US visa application has been handed over to a US judge after President Joe Biden's administration lawyers confirmed they had complied with a court order. Duke of Sussex's drug use is the subject of a high-profile lawsuit brought by the Heritage Foundation in Washington, D.C. Now, Matt, what does this development mean? Are we going to be able to see this visa application?
Possibly. So, as we know with Prince Andrew, once there are documents in court, the US lawyers or the judge could agree to unseal them. So it's currently sitting, you know, in court documents, and there could be a process where we get to see his visa application. And I'd say I don't think the son of the king queued up at a US embassy somewhere to get his visa. I think it must have been done by the Foreign Office or by the royal household. But this all comes down to his drug use and his confessions of drug use in Spare, and whether he should actually have a US visa or not, because they're really strict on these kind of rules. So it's really worrying, I think, for Harry. Donald Trump's possibly becoming president, and he's already voiced his dislike for Harry. It's a development out of his control, because this is not a court case that he's involved in. This is a court case between a think tank and the US government. And look, we could end up seeing what he said about did he confess to taking drugs on a visa application, if there is a standard visa application. I think this is going to be a worrying development in Montecito, because, as I say, they have no control over it.
Yeah. Rebecca, what do you think is worse? OK, so you've got the two scenarios. Prince Harry lied on his visa application, didn't mention his drug use, or he put it on his application but got the visa anyway.
I think what would be worse for Harry from a PR perspective is that he would have lied on the forms. I'm not confident he would have done that because he's got so many advisors. Why would he, in his autobiography, be so open and raw and honest then and then think, oh, hang on a minute, did I mess up the paperwork? Now, are you going to interject here and tell me about maybe Harry did apply it himself?
No, I'm just wondering, it was a chaotic time. It's a point I've not thought about. You know, it was his advisors and stuff. That it was a chaotic time. COVID had happened. He had just left the UK.
Yes.
Then flew
have
from
any advisors
Canada
at
to
that
the United
point?
States. Did he
Who
have
was
any
helping
advisors?
him? And I feel like he's our lost prince because if you've been sheltered under, in the royal family all your whole life and sidestepping what did happen, if you think about humanity level in it, like, this is a young man who's basically been set out in the world and doesn't really know. He must have so many people trying to take advantage. We know from people taking pictures of him, people betraying him, so many things. You know, I think we have to exercise some level of I'm just hoping maybe there was a mistake and maybe it was done with, you know, you have to think of intention sometimes. Did he intend to mislead in order to get the visa?
And that's the question, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think if he did, then it's not going to look good for Harry at all. But if it was an innocent mistake or something happened, then I think hopefully we can all forgive him. But I know people like to hate Harry.
Just like the Nazi costume, an innocent mistake when he accidentally ended up wearing that. You know, he just did the poor guy, just sort of ends up in the world and all of these things.
I feel some sarcasm.
I think that's just nonsense. If he writes a book where he actually speaks about, you know, having a conversation with Courtney Cox's pedal bin in a bathroom and the pedal bin replies because he's so off his head, or talking to the moon and the moon has a conversation back with him, he's fully aware of his drug-addled past and should confess it. Now, if he did, then that means it was glossed over. It means he's had special privileges. If he didn't, then I'm afraid it's yet another example of perhaps a little bit of dishonesty coming from Prince Harry. And bearing in mind there have been other examples that you could accuse him of dishonesty, I think this could be added to the list.
Remains to be seen, doesn't it? The Duchess of Sussex is reportedly having second thoughts about her family's upcoming UK visit due to concerns over her children's safety following a leak of their plans. Now, this story has been rumbling on for quite a while now. It's kind of harking back to the coronation last year. Will they? Won't they? We've got a sense of deja vu when it comes to this. Matt, I'm going to come to you first on this one. I guess the question on everybody's lips is, we know that Prince Harry will be here for the service at St Paul's commemorating the Invictus Games. Do we think he will be accompanied by the Duchess of Sussex and their children, Princess Lilibet and Prince Archie?
We don't know for sure. I have asked, and they've said we're not ready to announce it. So maybe they don't know themselves. And the one thing you mentioned about the children there, it's a couple of days after Archie's birthday. And remember, that was used, I think, 3 or 4 days after his birthday. And that was used as an excuse, a convenient excuse for Meghan not to come for the coronation and then for Harry to fly back, you know, immediately the day after. I think Harry has to come. Harry has to come. It's his games. Meghan has been there all the time. She went to The Hague, Dusseldorf. She's been up at Whistler for the one-year event. She's been with him at every single step since they've been together for every single Invictus Games. I don't think she'd want to come. I don't think she'd get a very good reception. And I think that's probably something in the back of her mind that she'd want to support Harry because she has her there on Invictus Games. They haven't announced it yet because I think she probably doesn't want to come and be on the steps of St Paul's and be booed.
Rebecca, do you think actually the Duchess of Sussex just wants to avoid being tabloid cannon fodder because that's what she will be?
Of course, wouldn't anyone? She has been repeatedly bullied. We cannot change the narrative. She has to be in that box where the press don't like her, the public don't like her. And it's like, what do you want her to do? If she doesn't go, she's not supporting Harry, she's taking another stab at the royal family. If she does come, it's we don't want her here. I think she's doing the best thing. And you've noticed, I think she's actually much in sort of contrast to Prince Andrew. She listens to what the public think about her. She now has, you know, you can't ignore that repeated, I call it bullying. You can't ignore that repeated bullying. She has stepped back repeatedly. She has pulled back and knows that people aren't interested and don't want to hear from her. So she is listening, and I don't blame her. The kind of vitriol that has been spat at this poor lady who hasn't really done anything, I think, on the scale of what Prince Andrew has done to the royal family. Wow. In comparison, it just happens the narrative is different when it comes to women in the royal family. I don't blame her. I'd like her to put her feet up with a cup of English tea at home and enjoy their time with her family, because she doesn't have to be paraded around like some kind of show pony.
Cristo, the Invictus Games is being commemorated on May the 8th, and there is a government bid being put together for us to host the Invictus Games in 2027. Do you think that's a good idea?
Well, I think it would be a nice idea. I think the Invictus Games is one of Prince Harry's best achievements. Whether Meghan will come with him, I think it will be whatever is good for brand Meghan and Harry. I mean, you talk about her being bullied. Well, I tell you what, stop slagging off the royal family repeatedly in various interviews.
But she has stopped now.
Well, she has stopped now, but they have a great long history of having done so. And I'm afraid to say, you say sort of, you know, that she needs to, that maybe she should step back. Her coming here will be dependent on what is good for the brand and good for the sales of whatever they're trying to hoik nowadays. And the latest is...
But don't you think the security issue is a genuine concern?
I think the one thing I've always maintained is that it was a mistake to remove their royal security. I thought that that was wrong, because whatever you might think of Harry and Meghan leaving the royal family, he will always be the son of the king. Always. He will always be the prince. So I always thought that that was the wrong decision. I think him going to court, trying to get it sort of done there, I think is a bit ridiculous, because they've got millions and millions that they could be spending on the security themselves. But I'm sorry, their brand is about selling stuff now and using that royal connection. And I mean, the latest thing is what? American sort of do-nothing orchard, where they're going to be hoiking pet food and tea towels, jam, for goodness sake. So I feel a bit sorry for them, in as much as that they need that royal connection in order to have the prestige of selling this tat. But on the other hand, because they've slagged off the royal family so much, they're in a really difficult position about trying to maintain that connection and coming here to various events. And let's not forget, the only reason people are angry is because the amount that they have slagged off the royal family. So I think that they are in a dilemma at the moment about what to do going forward. But I can't say that I would be surprised if they didn't come, because it would be bad for their brand to see her being booed.
Remember, this is their own personal project. This is not attending a coronation, a wedding, a funeral, some kind of royal event, a platinum jubilee or anything like that. This is their own personal pet project. They can do whatever they want, and that's where the security issue that you mentioned there comes up. I think I've sat through many of these court cases, and I think it's an insult to the Met Police and the Home Office for Harry and Meghan to think that they wouldn't be protected in this country. If they came over here and they went to an Invictus Games, which is their own personal project that they're kind of organising and that they want to attend, they will get protection by the government and by the police. And I think it's rude to the officers that work hard and the people who lay out the rules to say that they wouldn't feel safe coming here.
There's been reports that the King might play peacemaker between Princes Harry and William. How true do you think that is? Someone needs
to, don't they? Someone needs to. Look, the three of them were so close to everything they've been through, you know, with the death of Diana and stuff like that. Everything that's happened. It's one of the saddest royal stories, you know, for decades, the fact that these three don't really speak. And I always think back to that in Spare, when Harry said that his father said, "Please don't make my final days, you know, a misery," I think, if I've quoted it incorrectly. But somebody has to, because you know, William will be king one day. And if he's not talking to his brother, that doesn't play very well. And I think William understands that at some stage this will have to be resolved. Was Charles the right person? I don't think he would be the right person to do it. I think one of them, possibly Harry, would have to apologise, or they'd have to meet each other and get it sounded out. I think, but yeah, it's just awfully sad. And I think it probably makes Charles sad as well, that his beloved boys aren't talking, but I'm not sure if he's going to be the right person to do it. Sorry.
It is an incredible shame. I actually agree. It is a real shame. However this point has been got to, whoever is to blame, it is a real shame. And I think it's a real shame as well that Harry could have been the most perfect wingman to King William and been that real support for him. And I think that is a real shame. I think that the issue with any kind of reconciliation talks, though, is the trust, and whether that will end up being in a book, whether that will end up being in something that will end up along the line, you know, some sort of book, some sort of, you know, when they have those last reconciliation talks, it ends up, I think, being the final chapter of Spare. So again, if I was Prince William, I'd be really, you know, cautious about wanting to have those conversations, and it would need to be made clear that these can't go anywhere else. If they fail, this can't be the latest article or interview that ends up going out.
Well, that's all we've got time for this week. My huge thanks to Matt, Rebecca and Cristo. Now, if you want to join in with the debate, please leave a comment and make sure you subscribe if you don't want to miss a single episode. We'll be back next week with all the latest on the royal family. Hope you can join us. See you then.